Hey, shalom, brothers and sisters, and welcome back. Today I want to talk about the Reverend Jim Jones, Jonestown Massacre. Yesterday I talked about David Koresh, so I thought it's fitting just to talk about Jim Jones. And the reason that I'm talking about these guys, it's a lesson to be learned from who these guys were, and it's just we could learn a lot from these guys. And Jim Jones was he was a false prophet. He deceived many people. A lot of people lost their lives because of him and his delusions and everything. So, give you a little, just a little information on Jim Jones, and I encourage you to, you know, if you're interested, if you haven't heard about the guy before, look him up on the internet. He's got videos about him, real videos with him in it, stuff like that. But here we go. His name is James Warren Jones. He married Marceline Baldwin, June 12th, 1949. He was born in May 13th, 1931, and he died in November of 78 in Guyana. That's where Jonestown was at. He preached from 1955 to 1978. He was what we'd call a faith healer, but he wasn't a faith healer. He was a pretended faith healer. He's a preacher, political activist. Sorry, excuse me. The People's Temple in Indianapolis, 1955, and he was involved in the Pentecostal movement. He had the singing and everything. But like I said, with his all of his fake stuff, like the faith healing and the fake faith healing. I just want you to know he didn't represent the Pentecostal movement in general. This is just him, but he was part of this Pentecostal movement. But he promoted Christian socialism. Socialism. Like I don't know, like Nazis and stuff like that. Socialists. 1964, he was ordained as minister by Disciples of Christ. 1965, he moved the church to San Francisco, California. He was appointed as chairman of San Francisco Housing Authority. His peak membership was 3,000 people, 3,000 people strong. And what happened was it was like an interracial faith. And a lot of people were, poverty stricken and everything. And, there was, of course, whites in there. There was African Americans and, Mexicans, stuff like that, which ain't bad in itself. That's what the church is, combined with a lot of, people, regardless of what race they are, But, from the, the housing authority and everything else, he was politically, he was something. Locally, he wasn't, something, like nationally, but he helped a lot of these people get their jobs, helped them out, helped out with daycare things. He did real good as far as these programs, these church programs he was doing. And, but the overall thing was he was, getting a lot of their money. He was, some people would sign their houses over to him, their fortunes, their savings, their pensions and things like that, So in other words, they was getting jobs, but now they were still financially struggling because they were giving most of their money to Jim Jones and the People's Temple. So, they was working, but they wasn't, barely making ends meet in livelihood. As opposed to before where they was struggling, they weren't working. They was looking for work. But anyways, now we'll get to Jonestown. Construction of Jonestown began in 1974 after negative media attention was cast on Jim Jones and the People's Temple. And first it started with the fake faith healing, and then it started with a lot of the members leaving the church and reporting abuses that were going on into the church. And then Jim Jones at that time, most likely they claimed that he was he was using prescription drugs. He was addicted to them, and it was really causing his paranoia to really get out of hand. So he stayed up there while construction was going on, but he eventually moved down there with almost all of his followers. He left some back, here and there, but he went down there, and he was like, I guess you say, a king or something. Some reports said, when the members were down there building and fixing and doing whatever before he came down, it was a paradise down there. But when Jim Jones got there, they said it turned into a living hell. Because some of the people did survive Jonestown. Very few did, but some of them did. But anyways, Jim Jones had what he called the Rainbow Family, which he adopted children of different racial backgrounds, which ain't a bad thing either. I mean, after all, we're all children of Yahweh. But anyways, 1956, he first met this other charismatic leader named Father Divine. You could look him up too. He's sort of like a Jim Jones type of guy. He met him again in 1958, and Father Divine was with something like the International Peace Mission movement. Now, he was like a cult leader too. But when Jim Jones met him, we don't know what it actually was said and done, but see, it's believed that Jim Jones learned a lot from Father Divine, and how he led his flock, so to speak. But anyways, we get back to Jonestown. Well, Jones was down there, and it's alleged that he withheld people's passports, wouldn't let them return because some of them wanted to come back home. They missed their families, and things like that. But he wouldn't do it. So the families back home was sitting there fighting to try to, contact their loved ones. They worry about them. So they somehow they got the attention of Congressman Leo Ryan. Leo Ryan, of course, he's a politician, but he decided he's going to go down there and have a little chat, look around, and see what was going on. So him and his entourage and a couple people from the media, and I think there was like a couple former members went down there too. They went down there and had a little, talk with the People's Temple and Jim Jones, and they went down there. And first, everything looked all right. Everybody was all happy, and Leo Ryan was, said, hey, this, you guys are happy about this place, and after a while, somebody slipped a note to one of the media people saying they wanted out of there. There's a few people wanted out of there and everything, and so what they did was they showed the note to Jim Jones, and it's on video. You can see it on video. They handed it to him, then they questioned him about it, and you can see Jim Jones was actually pretty agitated by what he was seeing, and his paranoia kicked in. He started trying to tell him to leave and everything and whatever. And actually, one of the disciples of Jones, I guess he came at Leo Ryan with a knife, tried to attack him, and he was pulled off. I think Leo Ryan might have got a little cut on him or something. But once that happened, they said, hey, this is a dangerous situation. We're going to get out of here. So they took some of the people wanted to go back. They took them because some people said, yeah, we're going to go with them. This is our only chance. So they went with them, and they went to the little, what you call an airport. It was just a muddy field. And they went there, and they was getting ready to go on the plane. And then a tractor pulled up with People's Temple people in there, and they opened fire with machine guns and everything else, killing most people. Congressman Ryan, he was struck and killed. There's a few survivors of that, of course, but they and I guess he said the Guyana army was standing by watching what was going on. They didn't want to interfere. They didn't want to interfere because it's a United States issue, I guess, and they just stood by and they watched and they didn't do nothing about it. And back at home, that's when Jim Jones, talked to the people, got them all together and said, hey, we're in trouble now because they're all going to be coming after us. So what he called a white night is what he called. A white night was, he used to do drills about white nights where, the government was going to come take them and brainwash them, experiment on their minds, take their kids away, stuff like that. And they'd have to drink this Kool-Aid. But he said they were poisoned, so people would hesitantly drink it, and then they'd say, it's not poison as a test, whatever. But anyways, what went on, I guess what went on was they had armed gunmen there, and the people didn't want to drink it. They forced them to drink, or they shot them. And it was like over 900 people that died, and there's just a handful that probably escaped into the woods, the wilderness. Just a very few handful. But when the choppers and everything flew over, and they saw those people there, at first they couldn't believe they were people, but they were people, and they were laying out all over by the pavilion. I think that's what they called it. They was all surrounded by there. They was all laying there, men, women, children, the elderly, everybody. And come to find out, Jim Jones, he was on what they call his throne or something, and he was shot in the head. Now, we don't know if he shot himself or somebody else shot him or what, but, he died too. And the U.S. government had to come in and pick up the bodies, sort through them, get the names of everybody. And when they looked around, they couldn't find the passports of people or anybody. Things were missing, and it's kind of like wondering why this stuff was missing. And anyways, that was the end of the Jim Jones and the People's Temple. And there's only a few survivors. And they tell their tales. You can watch them on the TV. You could watch, interviews. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. But, I think my opinion, though, Jim Jones, he probably started out with a good heart when he was really, really young, he believed in this stuff. But I think after a while, he probably brought some issues from his childhood back with him. Because when he was a child, his dad was a World War II veteran, but the guy couldn't work. I don't forget what happened. He had maybe his lung or something, but he couldn't work, and he wasn't the nicest guy in the world. And Jim Jones, his family life, he took refuge in church. He went with, I think it was a neighbor lady. He went to church as a little kid with the lady, and he found comfort there, love, and, something opposite of his household, his family. And as he grew up, they said he was a kind of an oddball kid, and he grew up, and then he wanted to be a preacher, and he became a preacher. And I think after that, some of the power got to him. I think, like I said, the power got to him. His childhood past lingered with him. And then he started getting prescriptions, abusing drugs, and he was also engaging in sexual pleasures with some of the members of his flock, women and men, was allegedly reported. But he's, started becoming twisted and distorted in his mind. But, that's just a sad story, because the guy had a lot of potential, and it showed when he shined. He could help people out with his social programs in his church, and what he did for the community and everything. And and also one person, I can't remember who it was on a show. He said, there's one thing about Jim Jones that I noticed from the start. They said, you never seen the man carrying a Bible around. And plus he always wore them dark glasses so you couldn't see in his eyes. Well, But anyways, I just wanted to share with you the story of Jim Jones, and please comment below, because I might have missed something about him. Please comment below if I've missed a fact about him or something. Because like I said, we could learn from these people. Yeshua, said there's many who come in my name claiming I am the Messiah, but they're false, And then some of the apostles said the same thing. Beware of false messiahs and stuff like that. People coming in Yeshua's name when they don't have nothing to do with them. So anyways, that's all I want to say about that. And I thank you again for, joining me. And please give me a like and hit that notification bell. And I'd appreciate if you subscribe. And that's really all I got to say right now. And I thank you again. And remember, peace out and shalom. Till we meet again.